Do you have neighbors from hell? Do you live around people who are very difficult to be around, and perhaps that's influencing your happiness, your peace? It's influencing your quality of life in any way? If so, this talk is for you. I'm Stacey Sanderson, and I'm a psychotherapist, mental health professional, author, and coach. And for the most part, I talk about narcissism. Today is going to be somewhat of an expansion on that idea. And I'm going to be talking about narcissistic neighbors. Now, I say this, but this doesn't mean they have narcissistic personality disorder. There may indeed be other mental health issues and character pathology going on here, but that the way that they conduct themselves would indicate that there are high patterns of narcissistic behavior. And this is, I think, important because of the heightened hostility among people that's happening in the world at large, right? So, people disagreeing about things, having different viewpoints and worldviews. I think that's it's escalating the dynamic that I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to come out at this from speaking about uh, grandiose narcissism first, and then move into talking more about vulnerable narcissism. There are some similarities and there are some significant differences. First and foremost, both types of narcissists live in a fiefdom. I love that word. But they're delusional about the parameters around them, be that a property line, a wall between two condos or apartments or a townhouse, but they do not respect those property lines, and they may even become quite obsessed about it. Grandiose narcissists are kings and queens in their respective castles, and they don't like anything to threaten that. So, the more grandiose narcissists are probably going to have big parties. They like to be surrounded by people. They may be more loud or boisterous. They can be incredibly charming. So, they may buy you things, they may try to curry favor with you, but you will come to see that it's all transactional. Grandiose narcissists have higher traits of extroversion. They're more outgoing, and I think that their ego supply or their narcissistic supply is fulfilled with social connection a lot of the time. They're going to be outwardly trying to get information from you about how much you paid for things, how much money you make, things you're doing, things you're buying, and they will inevitably have to compete with that and do something better, right? So these folks are pretty easy to spot. They're going to also be weird about not obeying any rules, but trying to have control of their environment around them. So they'll use things like signs and notes and communications and nasty posts in community Facebook groups, that kind of thing. So you're going to see that carry out there. Vulnerable narcissists are a slightly different animal. At first, they may appear shy or insecure. At first, they may even be friendly, but they are starting to keep tabs of everything you say and do. And it's been my experience that genuinely insecure or shy people do their best. They try. They try to be friendly. They try to get along. They're worried about what people think about them from a very insecure kind of way and in a much more transparent kind of way. Vulnerable narcissists, on the other hand, are kind of wolves in sheep's clothing, if I can use that term. They're quietly monitoring you and competing with you. They are quietly being triggered by everything you do or say. Um, One of the most important things to remember about any kind of narcissism is entitlement. And that entitlement is not something that's obvious all the time. We may never know if we have something that someone else feels entitled to. So, like most of us may look at, someone's new addition or some beautiful landscaping they've done and really admire that. Narcissists will look at that and think they should have that. And what goes along with that is blatant copying and co-opting. Now, some people think this is cute or flattering. I disagree. I think it's creepy, and I think that it is a significant boundary violation. This can be subtle or not so subtle. So, my husband and I have an ongoing joke where I will say, I'll bet you $50 that so and so is going to go get this thing that the other so and so just got. And I think he owes me about $5,000 right about now. I'm kidding. If you have any kind of history of narcissistic wounding, you are going to experience a hypervigilance around this negative energy. These are very unhappy people. These are very emotionally dysregulated people. And because of that, it doesn't take much to push them over the edge. Both grandiose and vulnerable narcissists are going to be seeking validation from you, compliments. They're going to want you to admire them. And if you don't, there's going to be a shift in the way that they think about you, right? Um, I had a neighbor once ask me about a parenting situation, right? She asked me something about her little kids. And I think she fully 100% thought I was going to say, oh, no, you're a great parent. That isn't what I did. I was honest about what I observed. And then it has been a deterioration ever since, right? I just missed it. I didn't see it. I didn't see the beginning of the pattern at that point. They want to be seen as perfect. They want the outside world to observe them as perfect. Their children will have that pressure on them. And if they are passive aggressive by locking you out, I mean, by not making eye contact, not waving, not being friendly, they will often tell their children to do the same. Vulnerable narcissists are often alone a lot, right? They look down on friendship. They look down on community. They see themselves as being above that, right? There's a stereotype of that kind of grumpy old man, right? Usually, sometimes a grumpy old woman, but this is who these people are. They're monitoring you, they're keeping an eye on you, whether you do something right or wrong. It is all grist for the mill from them, for them, rather. They are malignantly envious or jealous. And again, this feeds that copying behavior. I do not think that the copying is conscious. I don't think for narcissists, envy is something they're aware of. Now, there may be many of you who disagree with me, but I think the envy shows up as a dysregulated nervous system or upset, and they instantly think you caused it, right? And I hope that that makes sense because it's an important point, right? We all want to have a sanctuary within our homes. For me, community is very important, and we've had amazing neighbors where we live. This is shifting and changing in the last 15 to 20 years. We want our kids to feel safe and cared for. We want to know that there's a shared camaraderie, that if there's a snowstorm, an ice storm, a power outage, we can rely on one another. If you grew too many tomatoes and they grew too many cucumbers, you can make a trade. I think that's what most of us want. I know that's what I want. Maybe it's because I talk about narcissism so much. I brought this into my life. Who knows? I'm just guessing. Last night when I couldn't sleep, landed on one of my favorite quotes, and I'm just going to take an excerpt from that, which is by Maya Angelou, which is, people won't remember what you said, people won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. This is the most important thing to remember about narcissists. What you do is going to influence them very differently than what you might think. So, how you cope with this is, first of all, know your rights, document if you need to. I've taken some photos over the years. Keep track of dates and times if you need to. Be careful with smear campaigning or muddying their name. Don't drag yourself into that. They can do that pretty well on their own. Positive psychology can be very helpful here, like the specific positive psychology of, let all of your good traits determine the way you live your life. If you're creative, if you like to have fun, if you like to be in a state of joy, if you like to be mindful, if you like to include people and participate, more power to you. If you find yourself being in hypervigilance, if you find yourself reacting, if this feels unsettling, it's important to take care of that, but don't do it by dropping down to their low vibrational level, right? It's kind of like I'm saying, you do you. If you are experiencing this, I want to hear more about it. I could probably talk forever about this. It's painful. It's very painful. And I've downplayed a little today what the worst of this can be, because it certainly can be much worse, from theft to criminal activity to harming animals. Like, it can definitely be worse. I've kind of hit the middle point here. So share your stories with me. I always want to hear more about it. And if you'd like to learn more about working with me and how you can find peace in a dysfunctional environment, please send me a DM and I'm happy to connect. I wish you a very good rest of your day. As always, like, subscribe, and be a part of the communication. Thanks for tuning in. Bye bye.